welcome back to Sports Econ 101. I'm Edward Brown, your host, along with my co-host, Vern Glenn of CBS affiliate KPIX TV in San Francisco, and Bruce McGowan.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay, now, Vern, I want to get right into this with you. Tell us about that Aaron Hernandez. I mean, we all know about what's going on with him. But
Aaron Hernandez, this is just in case, you just don't know.
If you live in a cave.
Tight end for the New England Patriots, okay? And with the injury to Gronk, the other tight end, who gets all the headlines, this guy was going to be like the primary target. He had just signed this $41 million contract, but he had kind of a bad boy, kind of a dark side. But anyway, Hernandez is being charged for first-degree murder in an execution-style murder of a former friend of his that he had bad blood with. And the prosecution is alleging that he and a couple of his conspirators picked him up at his home at 2:30 in the morning, took him to a wooded area where he was shot repeatedly in the back. In other words, he was shot dead. The body was later found. It also goes back to a nightclub incident where he and Hernandez had words, and I guess Hernandez was, whatever happened there, was still fuming over that to the point where he must have felt, in Soprano style, he gotta go. So, so he allegedly, he kills him execution style, and then
he didn't do it. He actually had the other two guys do it, right?
Well, we don't know. We don't know if he actually pulled the trigger or not.
And is anyone saying anything about steroids for Hernandez?
I haven't heard anything about that. But here's something I got to ask you, Vernon. What I heard was that the guy that he killed was hanging out or talking to some people that Aaron Hernandez didn't like, or he said something or was talking to some people that he shouldn't have been talking with.
Well,
that is the whole gray area.
Yeah.
That, as we know with the justice system, this hopefully will come out. The actual root of Hernandez's ire with this particular guy, and in the digging of information with Hernandez, apparently there was an incident where Hernandez shot a guy in the face. He lost an eye. Yeah. There's all these residual things that are now starting to come out from a legal standpoint, implementing Hernandez as this hardened, essentially criminal.
And the guy's, 23 years old? He has a little kid, and he was supposed to be a model citizen, and we're learning more and more. I mean, he hung out with Tim Tebow was his buddy. This was his... the guy used to throw passes to him in Florida.
Yeah, they were teammates at Florida. One of Tim Tebow's primary targets while at the University of Florida. And I guess because of his, prowess on the field, he was projected first-round pick. But when news of Hernandez's character started coming out, a couple of suspensions here, he fell all the way down to the fourth round before he was selected.
A lot of these coaches, they don't want to be hanging. They don't want these guys influencing the other teammates.
Especially Belichick is not that guy. And here's an interesting sidelight to this too. The Patriots now are saying to their fans, if you have an Aaron Hernandez jersey, turn it in, and we'll give you a jersey of comparable value. Well, what does that mean? Comparable value. Does that mean that it'll be some low-level guy, or will it be Tom Brady?
The day he was arrested, they dropped him from the team.
They dropped him from the team. His
They went to
right?
all the Patriot stores, took all the 81 jerseys out.
That's a good
just completely
And his sponsors dropped him too, didn't they?
Yeah.
Now I understand why this happens, but at the same time, isn't that kind of unfair? I mean, immediately assuming a guy is guilty before he's even gone to trial.
Well, it is, Bruce. I mean, when you're in big business and you're making money off of somebody's image, and something like that happens, you want to take 3 steps back. I mean, you don't want to be associated with him. Look what happened to Tiger Woods.
But let's suppose for the series of argument that Hernandez, I mean, it's not probably not going to happen. Let's suppose he had nothing to do with any of this. Let's suppose he's an innocent bystander or, had friends that were involved or his name got dragged in. Then what are the Patriots going to do?
Well, the damage is done.
Then his jersey is a collector's item.
I guess so.
Jeez.
Wow. Well, then the Patriots I guess they'll just let him keep his $12 million signing bonus.
Yeah.
That is guaranteed, but the rest of the contract voided out like that.
Wow.
And the Patriots apparently trying to recover some of the $12 million signing bonus.
The Patriots have been involved in some weird things. This whole thing with Robert Kraft and Vladimir Putin about how he gave him his ring, and then he said, "Oh no, he stole it from me." And Putin is laughing about it and saying, "Well, it's in the Kremlin if you want to go look at it. But I'm going to make you a new ring. It's going to be even nicer." And Robert Kraft is laughing about it. The media is having a field day with that story.
What about the years years before when they were undefeated until the Super Bowl, and then there was the stuff going on with the recordings.
Oh yeah, or a Spygate. I mean,
Spygate,
I mean, what is it with the Patriots? They have.
And one last thing on this guy, the victim, when he was picked up, he texted either his sister or
That's
somebody saying, "Hey, do you know who I left with?" And then he texts and says, "Well, it's a Patriots player, just so you know."
And his girlfriend, I guess the guy who was killed, his girlfriend was the sister. The girlfriend's sister is Aaron Hernandez's fiance or girlfriend also.
Yeah, there's a whole baby mama
Jeez.
kind of thing. Yeah, it's
strange.
Yeah, there's that's really crazy. Well,
watch for the movie.
Yeah, exactly.
Since we're talking about these kind of strange things, I wanted to talk about steroids for just a little bit. Remember old Melky Cabrera?
Oh, sure.
Apparently, though, he got his ring.
He did.
He
He
did.
did his ring. Okay, now the question I have for you guys is: can one compete without steroids?
Oh, sure, you can compete. You can win without steroids. I mean, it makes sense back in the day to maybe get that little edge. We don't know who didn't take steroids. That's the problem. I mean, Ken Griffey Jr. probably didn't take them, but we don't know for sure. Did Jeff Bagwell take them? We don't know for sure. It's possible he took them. I mean, what do you think, Brian?
And how about the clean image guys like Derek Jeter? Who that's projected as the kind of guy you want your daughter to date and all that kind of stuff. I mean, he's played so many years and apparently he's done it clean too.
Yeah. I'm thinking because when these guys do the steroids and they do really well, the money just rolls in, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then now I look at a guy like Andy Pettit, which I mean, I guess obviously there's some pitchers, Roger Clemens being accused of that too.
Just got the distinction of that strikeout.
That's right. Broke Whitey Ford's all-time Yankee.
All-time Yankee record for strikeouts.
Yeah.
But now, how many people remember that Andy Pettit used steroids? See, here's what I'm getting
And he
at.
testified. Yeah.
Yeah. See, when
In the
a guy
Clemens
comes
trial,
clean, when a guy comes clean right away, they're like, yeah, you know what? I did it. I'm sorry.
That's what Jason Giambi
I was
did.
going to say Jason Giambi is
People
now.
forget about
Yeah,
it.
nobody ever bothers to give Jason Giambi trouble in the media anymore.
No,
they love the guy.
everyone's very forgiving.
Well, and also Jason Giambi was such a likable guy. I remember when he was in Oakland. I remember that. I'm sure you dealt with him a lot, Vernon. I know I
All
did.
the time.
He was great.
Now, Jeremy, though, his brother, I don't know if he ever used steroids or he just didn't have the talent.
He probably should have.
I know. I still remember that play.
At the play where he was thrown out the plate.
Derek Jeter.
Yeah.
Why didn't he slide?
Slide.
Why didn't he slide?
Yeah. Well, he should. Jeter had to make a miracle play to get him.
That was incredible.
Just the fact that he came that close to home plate.
Yeah.
I mean, just kind of seeing that.
And they lose that game by one run, and they win that game, and they probably win the series.
Yeah.
After having been up 2-0
Yeah. That's
in
right.
that series.
Yeah. Well, that was the third game. I think they were going to win that game, and they went into sweep.
I think that's a game changer.
Oh,
And the next day, poor Jermaine dive, fouls a ball off his leg and breaks it in 5 places.
That's right. I
Oh,
like Jermaine. He was a good guy.
he's from the Bay Area too.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, he's a big guy.
Yeah, from Oakland, right?
Yeah, and he lived in Fairfield for a while.
Very good. Okay, one quick thing here before we go to break. Just off the cuff, most explosive backs, i.e. running backs, on lousy teams. For example, O.J. Simpson, Barry Sanders, Gale Sayers.
How about one guy I thought was terrific, and he wasn't on very many good teams, was Chuck Muncie from University of California.
Exactly.
Yep.
Yeah, there's a good guy.
San Diego Chargers.
They weren't that good back then.
That was pre-Air Coryell.
That's right, but unfortunately, as we know, Chuck did a lot of cocaine, and I think that eventually led to him passing away just recently.
Yeah, exactly. Well, one of the reasons I was thinking about these guys being so good is because they were on lousy teams. They probably had not very good offensive linemen, so they were pretty much having to do it all themselves.
Frank Gore was on some bad teams recently.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, until recently.
Yeah.
You're right.
Well,
Yeah, in the case of Sanders, I mean, he did it all by himself.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
Okay, guys, we're going to cut to our first commercial break, and again, the theme is the 50 Home Run Club. All right, here's the first trivia question. Only one decade did not have a 50 home run hitter since 1920 for the rest of the century. Which decade was it? First 3 callers with the correct answer win a free 3-day 2-night stay at the Lighthouse Resort. Their website is lighthouse4fun.com. Call 888-660-4495 to answer this question. Only one decade did not have a 50 home run hitter since 1920 for the rest of the century. Don't touch that dial because Sports Econ 101 will be right back.
I think I know the answer to that.
Okay.
The 60s?
Don't say anything.
Don't say anything.
We'll get to it. Okay.
No, it wouldn't be the 60s because Willie Mays had 60, 52, and 60.
I'm gonna guess the 40s.
40s. Yeah. Yeah.
Ruth was on his way out.
Yeah.
Williams was serving in the Army or Navy or whatever it was.
DiMaggio never hit 6 or hit over 40, I don't think.
Yeah.
He had 40.
40s. That'll be my
That's a good guess.
answer.
I think I'd go with that one. I think it was the 80s.
Because by the 50s, you had Mays, you had
Henry Aaron.
Mantle, Aaron.
Yeah. I know Mays hit 51 and 54, and I know Mantle hit over 50 and 56, I think. So that wasn't it. And I know Mays hit 54. And
You ever watch old reruns of Home Run Derby?
Oh, yeah,
Yes.
that's
TV
great.
show?
I love
Yeah.
that show.
Love watching Mickey
That's
Mantle
so
and
fun,
Willie
yeah.
I have
Mays.
a I have a DVD at home
Of a bunch of
a
those?
whole bunch
Oh,
of
that's
them.
great. That's fun to watch.
In fact, when we put together this Willie Mays obit, ready
Uh-huh.
to go, like when he goes,
Oh,
because you gotta
Yeah,
TV, you just gotta be ready for that kind of
Yeah,
stuff.
unfortunately.
And there's a clip of Home Run Derby.
Oh, man. He's doing pretty well, though.
Is
Really,
he?
yeah, he's
That's
doing
great.
okay.
I know his wife.
Except for his eyes.
Yeah, his eyes, they're better.
Otherwise,
but
he's
yeah.
That's the only reason he's not playing right now, you know. It's 'cause of his eyes.
That's right.
Okay. Here we go. Welcome back to Sports Econ 101. I'm Edward Brown, your host, along with Vern Glenn and Bruce McGowan. When we cut to the first commercial break, we asked this trivia question. Only one decade did not have a 50 home run hitter since 1920 for the rest of the century. Which decade?
My guess is the 1940s.
Bruce.
I'm going to go with Vernon. I like that. I know it wasn't the 50s because I know Mays hit 51 and 54. And I know it wasn't the 60s because I know Willie hit 52 and 65. And I don't think it was 70s, 80s, or 90s. So I'm going to go with the 40s too.
Okay. First, I'm going to give you, in the 1920s, you had Ruth.
Right.
In the 1930s, you had Hack Wilson,
And Garrick.
Fox, and Greenberg.
And Garrick never hit over 50.
No.
Okay.
In the 40s, you had Mize and Kiner.
Oh, that's right.
In the 50s, you had Mays, Mantle. In the 60s, you had Mantle, Maris, and Mays. Notice how only if your last name started with M, you were allowed to hit the home runs.
Right.
And that was in the 50s and 60s. In the 70s, there was only one, and that's going to be our next question.
Oh,
Okay.
good one. Good one.
In the 90s and 2000s, practically almost everyone in
Everybody-
baseball.
Yeah.
Right.
In the 1980s,
Nobody?
hit 50 home runs.
Wait a minute.
Really?
Oh, you know what? Mark McGuire had 49.
That's
Remember?
right.
That's right.
His rookie year, he had
Yes.
40. He almost, that's
In fact,
right.
That frustrated me. He played. I remember I was at that
That's
game,
right.
the last game. He was playing against Kansas City, and they intentionally walked him
Oh.
once or twice in the last. They just didn't want him to get 50.
Candy ass.
That frustrated me.
Oh, my goodness.
God, you would think between
Somebody.
him and Canseco,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Will,
Bagwell,
yeah,
yeah.
You would think somebody
Somebody would have done it.
would have threatened it.
Yeah.
Okay.
The 1980, that's a good one.
Is that a good
Yeah,
one?
that's a good one.
Okay.
Good one by the host.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, we're gonna play a little game here. Now I have the advantage because I've already done a little. I going back to my memory here. Do you remember this week in baseball?
Mhm.
Mel Allen.
Mel Allen, of course,
Okay. So now this is just my own personal opinion, but I want you guys to think about in the next 3 seconds here. What is the craziest baseball play that you can remember that you've ever seen?
Craziest
It doesn't have to be
baseball
from this week in baseball, but
Probably some kind of a triple play because they only happen once maybe a year.
That'd be
Yeah.
kind of neat.
Triple play maybe. Cat running out on the field and
Okay.
in the middle of the game, or a dog.
Ground ball to the fielder. The ball somehow ends up inside of his jersey.
I've seen that
Yeah,
happen.
I've seen-
And
yeah.
then remember for the Giants,
Oh,
it ended up in his glove.
yes,
and he
Terry
took off his
Mulholland,
glove.
that's
Yeah,
a
he
Took
good
out
off
his glove and like threw it.
Terry
Yeah.
Mulholland, the left-hander, he couldn't get out of his glove, so he threw the glove to first base, and the guy was retired.
Yeah. Now this is not, there's no right or wrong answer.
Oh,
But
how about Kevin Mitchell, barehanded catch?
Barehanded-
The barehanded grab.
Yeah.
okay, I'm gonna give you.
Oh, or what's his name? He was a Giant. Before that, he was a Philly. Broke his nose running through the wall in center field.
Hmm.
In fact, he got him a few extra million when he signed with the Giants.
I don't
Come on, he won a.
I remember in
Yeah,
college.
center fielder.
I remember in college that happened.
Slipping.
I'm slipping here. Well, how long ago?
He was
In the 90s or 80s?
in the 2000s.
Oh,
He won the World Series with the Phillies.
Okay. And then he was with the Giants.
He was with the Giants.
Oh,
He won with the White-
Aaron Rowan.
Yes, Aaron
yeah,
Rowan.
yeah,
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 yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's pretty neat. Okay, this is my vote, and again, I'll let you
Okay.
guys comment on this. I remember watching this, and if you go back, and I actually found it on YouTube again, in 1985, Blue Jays catcher Buck Martinez. He wasn't that great a player, but there was one play where there's a guy, he's catcher, there's a guy on second base, batter hits, there's only one out, I think one out, batter hits the ball to right field, runner comes charging around third, comes into home, the right fielder throws to home plate, there's a collision, Buck Martinez tags him out, but in the process breaks his leg. So he's writhing in pain, breaking his leg, okay? The batter has now rounded second and is headed to third, and Buck Martinez realizes, oh, there's a guy running to third, and in his broken leg state, takes the ball and throws it, but he throws it lousy, over the third baseman's head into left field, where I think George Bell was playing playing left field. So he's still writhing in pain. The batter has now rounded third because realizing the ball went over the third base.
Yeah, he's going.
He's going. So he's coming home, and George Bell, without really thinking, kind of sees something going on at home with the catcher, but just instinctively, hey, the runner's going. Throws the ball, one bounce, lands in Buck Martinez's glove. He reaches up and tags the guy.
What are the chances?
Yeah,
right. A perfect rope right to the glove.
Yeah,
wow.
One bounce. One bounce was even harder.
Wow.
And then they take Buck Martinez off on the stretcher.
So he tags out two guys
at home
and breaks his leg in between.
Yeah, they think it's the only 7-2, 9-2, or no, excuse me, 9-2, 7-2 play.
And Buck Martinez is a pretty good broadcaster. I imagine he's had to talk about that a few times on the air.
Yeah, so that's my vote.
Oh, that's a good one.
Okay.
I like that.
And then really quickly, just for football, I don't know if you guys remember this play. There was I think it was the Bills versus Steelers, back in the 90s. And I can't remember who the Bills, I don't know if it's Steve Tasker or one of those guys, but he catches the ball, he gets upended, lands on his head. The ball pops out, gets intercepted, but because everyone was so like, oh my gosh, what happened to, I think, again, I'm going to say Steve Tasker, because the guy landed on his head, it was so much like, oh my god, the guy's probably going to be paralyzed.
Everybody's paying attention to him.
Everyone's paying attention
Except for the guy who caught the ball.
Yes, but they called it incomplete. And if you watch, it never hit the ground.
Wow. So it was a fumble.
Technically. No, interception.
Well, it bounced off of him? I guess, technically.
Yeah, whatever. Yeah, either way.
I see what you're saying,
But
it deflected off of the receiver.
Yeah.
As he was landing on his head.
As he was landing on his head. And
so the ball pops free, it's sitting in the air, head hit the ground,
Yeah.
so it's live.
Yeah.
Guy gets it, takes off running, but they blow it dead.
But they blow it dead just because.
That's interesting. It reminds me of the Immaculate Reception. If you watch the Immaculate Reception and Jack Tatum hits Frenchie Fuqua, the ball usually would go down on the ground. It takes this weird deflection and goes literally about 20 yards sideways. And Franco Harris is just standing out there, da-da-da-da-da, I'm not involved in the play. Oh, here's the ball. Oh, I'm going to run for a touchdown. Yeah. And the Raiders still to this day think it was illegal.
That's right. Well, it's funny, but one of the other things we were mentioning was about explosive backs and all that. And to me, this is my own personal opinion, maybe because I was a big Raiders fan back then, is I think Franco Harris was a good back, but he had such a good line.
He did.
And
he never took chances too. You'd always get him out of bounds. He would run out of bounds. That's why he lasted so long.
That's why he stayed healthy.
Yeah.
Okay. Change a little subject here. How important is camaraderie as compared to individual talent?
I think
for a team?
Very important. I think it can be. I mean, you've had teams. Let's take the Oakland A's of the early 70s. You talked to Vida Blue or Reggie Jackson. They'll tell you they didn't get along too well, some of those guys, but they played well as a team. Mm-hmm. But then you take a team like this last year's Warrior team, which really, on paper, didn't have great talent, but they played so well together and they cared about each other. And it's interesting. I don't want to get off on a tangent here about this, but I'm broadcasting for a minor league team right now, the San Rafael Pacific's baseball team, and there's the same kind of feeling in this team. They're not a great bunch of talented players, but they really play well together and they really care about each other. So I think it can mean a lot, especially in football or basketball, not so much in baseball.
I think there's a certain culture that exists in a clubhouse or in a locker room because you're there more so than you are at home or maybe with your family.
You're right.
And somehow you make it work. You got the country guys in one part, you got the yo guys on the other part of and then you got the guys that are in between. But somehow they're all there to win, and everybody kind of knows the strengths and the weaknesses. Somehow on the good teams it can work.
Yeah.
Well, you look at the 2012 San Francisco Giants.
Very much that
Right?
way.
I mean, just the Hunter Pence doing the preaching, his sermons at the end.
With the sunflower seeds.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Exploding. all
And
over
I think
the
that's
place.
why the Giants were so popular. One of the reasons the Giants were so popular, and the Warriors. Again, the Warriors more than anything else. I don't think I've seen a team like that since Al Attle's team won the World Championship in 1975. Those guys loved each other. It's such a shame that.
Are you talking about the We Believe year?
Not that we no, the more recent, like this team.
Oh.
75 was way back. That won a championship with Al Attles and Rick Barry and Jamal Williams. But this team, this last year, you look on paper, they took the San Antonio Spurs to 6 games.
To the brink.
Yeah, to the brink, and they easily could have gone
And
7.
that first game, they really should have won.
They should have won that game.
Should have won
Yeah.
that game, yeah. The individual talent, it's interesting. There was a guy, a baseball player, and I can't remember his name, but my dad used to tell me about him, that there was this one guy that they used to say, he can't run, hit, or field, but he could beat you.
Yeah.
And it's the same sort of thing where, if because a guy hitting, 250 isn't great, but if you get a bunch of those 250 hitters hitting consistently at that time, you're going to have a lot of runs scored.
It's the old saying, how much fight is in the dog, I mean, that's what wins.
Good
The
point.
spirit.
Speaking about running or hitting or fielding or the lack thereof, I don't know why he popped in my head, but Charlie Huff.
Oh,
If
yeah.
you looked at this guy, he looked like some guy that be on bib overalls and just driving a tractor on his rear tip.
Rick Russell.
Yeah,
That's
but
because he's a knuckleballer.
but he could throw. He could throw the knuckleball
Yeah, that's
time
right.
after time and get guys out. And now I guess it's R.A. Dickey, huh?
I love watching Rick Russell when he was pitching with the Giants. I loved after the games. You talk about chemistry. I went up to him once. I said, "What is it with this team? You got great chemistry." And he goes, straight face. He says, "I don't know anything about chemistry. I flunked chemistry in school." Okay.
Well, wasn't he the guy who wanted to read all the the Western last
Zane Grey
or Zane Grey or
yeah.
last
Oh yeah.
All he
Oh,
wanted
yeah.
to do was just sit back.
Yeah,
and
no,
just
you're
read
right. He would sit there in his little cubicle and read his westerns. I'd ask him once, "What are you reading?" "Oh, just some Zane Grey." Okay.
All right, here we're going to cut to our second commercial break. Who was the first shortstop in Major League history to join the 50 home run club? The first 3 callers with the correct answer win a free 3-day 2-night stay at the Lighthouse Resort. Their website is lighthouseforfun.com. Audience, you can't tell both these guys have their arms folded, kicking back in the chair thinking about this one.
I have no idea.
God, can I have the era? Can I have the initials?
You can
What?
phone
Yeah.
a friend.
Okay.
Okay, call 888-660-4495 to answer this question. Who was the first shortstop in Major League history to join the 50 home run club? Again, call 888-660-4495. Make sure to include your name, your email address, speak slowly, and spell out your email one letter at a time. Don't touch that dial because Sports Econ 101 will be right back.
50
That was funny.
home
You
run
guys
club.
Yeah. I know. It's like, what?
50 home run.
I know A-Rod's hit over 50, but there's been somebody before A-Rod. Who would it be?
Because the question is, who was the first?
Who was the first? Yeah.
Who was the first?
Who was the first?
Who was playing for the Yankees in the 20s? Who's shortstop for the
Yeah, they
Yankees?
didn't have. I can't remember off the top of my head, but I don't think it was I don't think they had a guy who hit that many.
You'd have to be like a big
Bert
athletic guy.
Campaneris.
Or Campaneris. Who would have it
I don't
been?
think he hit 50 home runs.
Is it a pretty obvious one when you heard the
I'm
name?
not going to say anything.
Hall of Famer?
I'm not going to say anything. I got to keep poker face. How's
That's
this?
true. You do.
What about Cal Ripken?
Cal Ripken. Did he hit over 50?
I don't know if he ever hit over 50.
Never hit over 50.
I'm just trying to think of big guys
Yeah.
that could hit with power. That could.
God, I should know that when I'm such a baseball nut, but I'm pulling a blank
Well,
here.
these are kind of hard. Where they're just
That's a good
weird
question.
questions.
No, that's a good one.
First.
I mean, you ask some questions sometimes, I go, God, that's too easy. This one is a tough one. That'll stump some people. That'll stump most people. If Vern and I can't come up with the answer, you know your audience out there. It's amazing though how some sports fans are just so good with sports trivia. It's amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, they know so much. 50 home runs. Yeah, I'm drawing a blank.
Gosh, 'cause, I mean, it's just a bunch of little guys that play that position.
Mostly. It is mostly. Sometimes you get a big guy though that just muscles up. Who would it be? Chicago. Ernie Banks? No, not Ernie Banks. Maybe Ernie Banks? No.
Was he a shortstop?
He was for a while. Then he played first, but he didn't hit 50 when he was a short. I don't think he ever hit 50.
Could it be somebody obscure like Mark Belanger?
You know, I was going to say that they had 4 guys who hit over 40 one year, and Davey Johnson was one of those guys, but he was a second baseman. Wasn't anybody on the Giants, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Rich really hit 37 for the year.
Yeah, but he can 50. Yeah, if you look at
Remember that?
Okay, right?
Here we go.
50.
Welcome back to Sports Econ 101. I'm Edward Brown, your host, along with Bruce McGowan and Vern Glenn.
Yo!
Hey,
Good to be here.
When we come to the second commercial break, we asked this trivia question. Who was the first shortstop in Major League history to join the 50 home run club? Answers.
No clue.
No clue.
I've been racking my brain
No
out.
gosh,
clue.
we're
No
just-
clue.
we're
We
not.
played with Abbott Costello.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. Can you
I'm
give us?
gonna-
First, no clues on
Can you
second.
give us a hint? What
Yeah,
era?
can you get can you
2001.
Oh,
2001?
would it have been A-Rod?
Yes.
Ah.
Alex Rodriguez.
He was the first shortstop. He
Wow.
had 52 home runs for Texas in the
Wow.
year 2001
And he did it with
Texas.
steroids.
Oh.
Yes.
Yeah,
So it's-
01, yeah, that was the time he
Ah,
was.
that's right. He was
he
doing
said,
it.
yeah.
He was juicing. I wonder if he and Barry Bonds went to the same. No, they didn't go to the same guy.
No.
They're probably all related somehow.
Alex is kind of a strange dude. Have you ever talked to Alex Rodriguez before? Or I've had a couple sit downs with him. He's actually very charming. but
Nothing outside
Just-
outside of a group setting.
Just
No.
I did a one-on-one a couple times with the guy. He comes across as very charming, but there's a kind of aloofness to him. It reminds me of a politician, just very calculating. And he won't give you any, he's very articulate, but he doesn't give you anything of any depth.
Close to the best.
Very close to the best. Whereas Derek Jeter, totally different guy, completely, much more open.
You think one guy's got skeletons in the closet? Of course, they're not. Those
It's
skeletons
a
are trying to
shame.
come out.
You know, it's a shame, too, because he was such a great player.
Yeah.
He didn't have to do that.
I remember the first
Well,
time.
That's why he wasn't.
Yeah.
I remember the first time I met Derek Jeter. Oddly enough, it was in San Rafael,
Really?
California. Yeah, he was.
Right here.
It was at some studio by the Northgate Mall. I know I'm alienating some of those listeners. Northgate, San Rafael.
Well, what was
But
he
anyway,
doing? What was he doing in San Rafael?
he was EA Sports was doing a shoot
Oh,
for a video game,
okay.
and so they had him wearing that the all black suit with all
Oh,
little
yeah.
ping pong balls all
Oh, I
over
remember
it.
that.
And they were having
that
him do all
commercial was
these.
shot up here.
Yeah,
I did not know
and so
that.
they were having him do all these because they were recording his movements so they could
Oh,
put
yeah.
it in the video game.
Sure.
And so he was doing media interviews, and my neighbor, who grew up in Connecticut, was a huge Yankee fan, and I took him with me, and I went, "Come on, let's go meet Jeets," and went up there and sat down. He could not have been more
Very
charming. He was
Very nice
just awesome.
One thing about him, though, you had to catch him. If you did an interview with him, you had to set it up ahead of time because if you tried to go up to him the day of the game,
No,
just forget about it.
wouldn't talk day of the
No.
game. A lot of guys had that. A
Yeah.
lot of guys have that kind of rule. They
Yeah.
don't want to mess up their
Yeah.
routine. They want to see it come.
I do that just with recording the show. Like, don't bother me. I'm recording the show. You can't do that.
What does your wife think of that when you said that in the morning? You
Well,
tell her, I'm not
what?
talking to you today.
Not now.
Not
Yeah.
now.
I'm prepping.
That's it. Hey, she just texted me before. and
Just
it's
give
like,
me
hey,
my coffee, honey. Leave me alone.
Right.
It's like I turn off the
Yeah.
phones, turn off everything
Yeah.
during that.
That's good. I like that.
Okay, we're going to change a little subject here. The NFL apparently wants more games, maybe in London.
I've heard about this. Now, aren't they going to play a game next year in London? I think
A regular season game,
regular
right?
season
Yeah.
Yeah,
And Major League Baseball is going to play some games in Australia next year. That's what I heard also.
really.
Yeah, that's a fact.
Well, the billion-dollar business, the
Yeah.
big machine, the big dog, they just keep on raging. I'm sure they would just
Yeah.
love to have as many games they could outside of the continental United States.
New markets to conquer.
Well, exactly. I mean, wasn't it
Yeah.
baseball many years ago? It was pretty much just America,
Yeah.
and then suddenly, Japan. And who was the biggest? Who has the most home runs?
Oh, it's Sadahiro.
Sadahara.
But you know, who
800.
was the best guy to push baseball abroad was Lefty O'Doul, the former San Francisco SEAL and San Francisco native, because he was over there before the war, and he was the guy that brought baseball to Japan. He was the
Is
ambassador.
that right?
That's a true story.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so now you got all these players coming from Japan and then other
Mhm.
Asian cultures,
And now you know the rest of the story. Good day.
From this week in baseball.
That's why
I'm sure I'm sure the league, if they could swing it, if they could schedule it so that whichever teams go to play in whatever country, they get the bye week, so they have time to kind of recover. But I You know, you're going to see games
Oh,
in
yeah.
Japan. You're going to see games in China.
Nome, Alaska.
Yeah, you'll see games in yeah.
Yeah, you will. They'll play the game under the midnight sun.
You know, I heard that there was a baseball game played in Alaska where everybody in the stands died.
What?
Because
What?
everyone froze. It was
No.
ridiculous. That's what I heard.
No.
Hey, I read it on the internet. It has to be true.
Oh, yeah,
come
yeah.
on the internet, right?
Right.
Hey, you know, you mentioned Mill Allen. I got a quick story to tell you about. I did an interview with him once. This is in the mid '80s, and he was towards the end of his career. And Mill liked to have, when he wasn't working, he was working on some television. He'd do maybe a couple of innings, and then he'd sit in the press box in the back and have a few drinks. He liked to drink. And so I went up to him and, sure, I'll do the interview. And I go, oh, God. So we did the interview, and but as soon as we started talking, he was very smooth, but he'd take these long pauses of about 10 seconds between thoughts. So I had to take the interview and edit it. And it sounded perfectly okay, but it was interesting.
A 20-minute interview came out in 3 minutes. So.
Nice guy, though. Very nice guy. But I tell you, you had to stand about 5 feet away from him because his breath was like...
Because the alcohol?
The alcohol, yeah. He was a heavy drinker.
You know, I know ESPN is obviously really popular, but I really missed that this weekend.
Yeah, I do too.
That was fun. They always had some really good stuff on that. Okay. You guys hear about the NBA team facing tampering charges with ticket prices?
No.
You didn't hear about that?
Did you hear about this, Frank?
No, I didn't. Which team?
The Atlanta Hawks
Oh.
teams. It says here, Hawks could face tampering charges after ticket ad reportedly mentions Dwight Howard and Chris Paul.
Dwight Howard,
Oh.
from Atlanta.
That's right. And the Warriors are looking at him, actually, too. They're trying to get him, believe it or not.
Yeah, there's 5 teams on the list,
Yeah.
and the Lakers can bring him the most money, but the Warriors are in the running.
Isn't that amazing? Wouldn't it be something if he ended up with the Warriors?
The Warriors, the Rockets.
They could definitely use him.
They could use him because
The
Andrew
Mavericks.
Bogut, Andrew Bogut may not be back next year.
He did very well in the playoffs.
Well, he was playing with a lot of pain, and he just burned himself out. His ankles are finished. I hate to say it. I mean, it's like a racehorse, that's broken his leg. You just can't. 270 pounds, you can't on a little delicate ankle.
How about the other center on the team, Andres Biedrins, getting $11 million
Oh.
for the best seat in the house?
Stealing money. And the other guy who can play center, Festus Ezeli, out for, 9 months
Yeah.
because of an injury to his knee? Boy, that's
I like
bad.
Festus.
Typical Warriors bad luck, They finally start to turn the corner and
And then something happens.
something happens.
Okay, so this specific one says Dwight Howard and Clippers point guard Chris Paul heading to other teams when they become free agents in July. We're not employed by the NBA, but we're not really required to call them Lakers center and Clippers point guard when we discuss their futures. So NBA teams aren't allowed such freedoms. In the past, prominent league executives have been fined hefty amounts for merely honestly answering no-brainer questions about future agents, free agents. Yeah, so it's amazing. It's all the rules that come upon these guys that don't come.
Too many rules.
Yeah, I mean, you and I can talk about.
Come on.
Hey, they should,
Yeah, but I think the coaches trade between the Celtics and the Clippers pretty much sealed it for Chris Paul to re-sign with the Clippers. He's coming back to the Clippers.
It's bizarre, they're trading the coach. I mean, that's happened before. Chuck Tanner was traded from the Pittsburgh Pirates to the Oakland A's for Manny Sanguian. How about that? And then Manny Sanguian was a part of that '79 championship team, the We Are Family team, that Chuck Tanner managed. He went back and managed them. So that didn't work out too well for Charlie.
The big one was John Gruden traded from the Raiders to the Tampa Bay
Bad
Buccaneers.
move.
Yeah.
It looked like a good move for the Raiders. What, they get 4 draft picks?
Yeah.
And they ended up losing terribly
in the Super Bowl.
in the Super Bowl. And remember the great shot of John Gruden jumping gleefully up and down as Derek Brooks ran back another touchdown. Rich Gannon is throwing his helmet away in disgust. And the Raiders have not had a winning season since.
Wow.
It's been a.
Well, that was the year too that, if I remember correctly, I think it was an offensive lineman who.
Barrett Robbins.
Barrett Robbins went AWOL.
He
The night before the game.
Yeah, poor guy.
There's got to be something going
Drinking
on.
problem. He had a very serious
And he had a
appetite.
chemical imbalance
Yeah.
too.
See, that,
Yeah,
I
he
mean,
was
that's what
bipolar.
Yeah.
Well, he was a good player, and that really hurt him because they lost one of their key offensive linemen. He was one of the key guys.
Yeah, for those that don't know, that are watching and listening out there, the lineman who makes all of the offensive calls, all the signals, the blocking schemes, usually is the center.
He's the center, yeah.
And so when he's not there,
Boy,
Well, that's
it
right, he was a
just
center, wasn't
that's
he?
Yeah.
right. And he was a smart guy.
there's a
Good guy.
trickle down effect.
I got to know Barrett a little bit because I worked on the broadcast. I worked the sidelines for a couple of years. And nice guy, but you could tell he had some demons. And
Yeah.
it's just.
Well, that chemical imbalance. I mean, what
He had a lot. He had a lot of problems after that too.
Yeah, you got 15 seconds to call the play in the huddle,
Yeah.
and so then you run to the line, and then if the quarterback audibles, then the center's got to audible and
Yeah.
give all the blocking scheme assignments
Yeah.
through whatever code they use
Hopefully they have
before the
different-
ball is even snapped.
It's amazing to me. People don't realize how much stress and how much
They have no idea.
No, they have no idea how much you have to just assimilate as you get ready to play a football game. It's crazy.
So how you got to make sure that the center and the quarterback voices are different enough.
Yeah, definitely.
Wow, amazing. Okay.
4-3
let's
set. Run right. 35. Hook.
That's pretty good.
that is pretty good. Okay.
It hurts just to do it.
You guys remember Curly Neal?
Sure.
Oh, sure.
Okay. This is just a funny quote here. He said, the great philosopher Curly Neal said there were only two good plays, Romeo and Juliet, and put them all in the basket.
I like that. That's
Harlem
good.
Globetrotters, I used to love
Oh,
watching them
boy.
when they were, Meadowlark Lemon and all that.
Mhm.
Quick funny story. The only time I ever got to see him in the early 70s, and during the, you get to watch the warm up. Meadowlark Lemon is at half. Remember his half court shot?
Sure.
Right. So all he's doing, everyone else is practicing layups, jump shots, whatever, and all he's doing is practicing his half court. And he missed every single one of them. Every time he'd miss it, the fans were, oh.
Yeah.
This is just during practice, right? During the game, he tries it once.
And
And he makes it, of
Yeah.
course. Hey,
I'm
man,
like, you're
he's a
almost-
showman.
Well, that's the thing
Yeah.
is you're almost wondering if he purposely missed it on purpose.
Who knows?
I heard a story about how he was not a very nice guy because he had this big rivalry with a guy named Marcus Haynes. You remember Marcus
yeah.
Haynes from the Magicians?
Yeah.
And they were two great ball handlers, and Meadowlark really resented the fact that Marcus got a lot more publicity at the beginning, and he was very mean to him apparently. So Meadowlark had a
But Meadowlark, he was the leader. He was
he was the leader.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
But boy, to watch Curly dribble.
Yeah. You know who played for the Harlem Globetrotters for a while? Was Will
Will
Chamberlain,
Chamberlain.
right?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
And now they got female members of the team.
Jeez.
Yeah, it's it's still kind of enjoyable. I don't know. It just doesn't.
I think for a little kid,
For little
Yeah,
kids.
for little
yeah,
kids.
they're like in wonderment over. Oh,
Yeah.
wow, how did he do that? You know.
Okay, let's see what else we can talk about here. What about NFL players getting internships to attempt second careers? Some of these guys, after their careers, they're already thinking, you got to move on to other positions. Not like Steve Young.
Mhm.
Wasn't he a lawyer?
I think he.
Yeah, a law degree. Yep.
Yeah.
But he's
Well,
an announcer now.
Eddie DeBartolome, those guys. He made all those guys billionaires. And it's not that those guys don't have to work, but they love the game so much. It's their way of kind of keeping their hand on the pulse of the game that's going on. But back in the days of the 60s and 70s, even beforehand, you had to have a second job in the off season.
No question.
Had to.
Sure.
Why Tittle up until about 2 years ago, and why he's going to be close to 90, was actually still going to work as an insurance salesman at his own business. He was very successful at it. But I asked him once, I said, "Why are you still doing it?" He goes, "I like to do it."
Yeah.
He's a
Who
good
was the
old.
medical guy? Was it Brent Jones or Harrison?
No, you're thinking of Dr. John Frank,
no,
the tight end, who
was
became a surgeon. Yeah,
was that
a former
the one?
49er. He played about 4 years. John Frank. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
guys,
'cause-
we're going to cut to our third and final trivia question. Who was the only player to hit for 50 home runs in the 1970s? Only one person.
Ooh.
The first three callers with the correct answer win a free 3-day, 2-night stay.
Wow.
to Lighthouse
One
Resort.
player in the
Only
one
one player
hit
Wow.
50.
Wow.
in the 1970s. Their website is lighthouseforfun.com. Call 888-660-4495 to answer this question. Who was the only player to hit for 50-plus home runs in the 1970s?
I know the answer.
Oh,
I
you do?
know
Okay, don't say
the
it yet.
answer.
Okay.
Make sure to include your name, your email address, speak slowly, spell out your email one letter at a time. Don't touch that dial because we're going to be having some closing comments on Sports Econ 101.
I'm having a brain fart with that one.
You have to surprise it, don't say it.
Okay.
Mm.
I'm
99%
97%
sure. Oh,
sure.
pretty sure.
97.3%.
I have the answer.
Okay. I'm counting on you.
I think you're going to get this one. I just have this feeling.
Oh, I need a cup of coffee. I think I feel. How as you get it to a certain age, you get older, and later after you want to take a nap, especially after doing that.
Oh, that's every day, dude. Man, 3 kids.
Yeah. After taking my
Three
daughter,
boys.
I was with my daughter in the pool for an hour, and she just throw me again, Dad. Throw me
Oh,
again.
oh yeah, especially the
Yeah, and then she wants to dive underwater and
Go
play
through the
around and
legs and
jump
all that.
around.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
like, oh,
fun times. Fun
Yeah.
times.
no, it is fun times. It is exhausting though, running around with little kids. They wear you out.
And you have one, dude.
I have, and
Yeah.
she's
You
only
have
8,
one.
and she's only 8, and it's a girl.
Yeah.
Girls are not near. Well, she's energetic, but she's not. You know, like you know what I can do? I can say, okay, Molly, it's time for some art. Put a piece of paper in front of her and some pencils, and she's buried in that for like an hour. And I can
Wow.
tell, it's not a problem.
Wouldn't happen in Glen House.
No, you got 3 boys.
You gotta, you
Three
gotta
active boys.
get
But you get them together, and then you can kind of like.
How old are they now?
Guys have your fun, right?
9, 12, and 14.
Oh,
They can all kind of
man,
wrestle
you're right in the
together,
middle of
right?
Yeah.
You're right in the middle of kid heaven there.
Fortunately, one of the rooms is kind of like the game room, and so that's where the PlayStation's set up, the Wii, and they just
9, 14, and 11.
9, 12, 14.
So they're all going to be, well, 2 of them will be in high school at the same time, and one of them will be just starting high
Yeah,
school.
well, one will be the oldest will be starting high school,
The other 2 are gone.
and then we'll have one in high school, one in the middle school, and one in elementary.
Oh, man. You're a
College.
busy guy. In college.
Oh,
Well,
jeez.
Yeah.
better keep working.
Yeah, that's
You and me
for sure.
both, pal. I'll be working until I'm 75. Actually, I got a wife that
Until I'm
works.
175.
My wife works, which helps. That's good. She's got a good career. She's making more money than I am.
I
Right?
wish my wife.
Oh, yeah. Thank
She's
God.
she's working with those boys.
Oh, I bet
So-
that's a
so-
full-time job.
So you're the trophy husband then.
I'm the the trophy husband. Boy, I'm the trophy husband. My wife's in big trouble. She is really. She did not get she got the booby prize. Man,
So you're eye candy. That's if you're a cyclone.
yeah.
Okay.
In
We
my
have,
mind, maybe about 40 years ago.
okay, we have 2 minutes and 30 seconds. I covered most of the stuff. that I
Wow.
wanted to.
That went by fast.
Yeah,
Time
that-
just-
Hey, by the way, we don't have time to talk about this, but did you guys see? This is so funny. I don't know if you saw the last game of the NHL playoffs. I'm not a big hockey fan, but that was an amazing game. But
Oh, the 2 goals in 17
yeah,
seconds.
but
Wow.
if you have a chance, go to YouTube and put finish broadcast of final game, and you'll have the Finnish announcers. These guys are so entertaining and so much fun to listen to. It's like listening to the Spanish, play-by-play of soccer.
Yeah.
Well, it was amazing. They were like,
I'll pull that up.
it was Boston led 1-0, then it was tied 1-1, then Boston led 2-1, and all this happened in the last 10 minutes of play, and then there were 2 goals in the last minute of play that won the game. Oh, that was amazing. I mean, there were 5 goals scored in the last 10 minutes and 2 in the last 2 minutes. That was incredible.
Okay.
I've never
Well,
seen
you know
it.
what? I'm going to ask you guys about being announcers. What do you do for fill-in time when you?
Oh, okay.
Okay.
All right.
That's kind of fun.
That is fun.
Harry. Welcome back to Sports Econ 101. I'm Edward Brown, your host, along with Vern Glenn and Bruce McGowan. When we cut to the third commercial break, we asked this trivia question. Who was the only player to hit for 50-plus home runs in the 1970s? Vern, you said you're 97.3% sure.
I'm pretty sure George Foster,
That
is
Cincinnati
good.
Reds.
Good.
Very good.
Damn, I'm good.
You are
Uh,
good.
Dang.
Another former Giant. that
52,
never
I
said.
believe.
Yeah, that's true.
Another former Giant.
Yeah.
And you know who he was traded for? Frank Duffy.
There you go. That was a good trade, huh?
Yeah. Shortstop who couldn't hit his way out of a paper bag.
All right.
Couldn't hit the Mendoza line. Yeah.
Before we cut to the thoughts for the day, just want to ask you guys just really quickly, what do you do when you're announcing and there's a quick lull? How do you fill in
Tell a good story. Have a good story ready to go. That's
Yeah.
what I do. Yeah, and Vernon's really good at that. He's got the great sense of humor, so he has no problem with that.
Well, I have so many pieces of insignificant around my brain. I just kind of when the pregnant pause hit, I'm just ready to throw in something.
He's
I
always
don't know what.
always got a quick quip. I'm not as good with that. I have to come up with a story. The problem with stories is they take time to tell, and if you have only a minute, it's hard to squeeze a story in. So,
which is
You know.
exactly how much time we have right now.
okay, I've got a good story. No, I'm just kidding.
okay, so that's how you do it.
Yeah.
All right. Here we're going to cut to our thoughts for the day. Bob Euchre, remember Mr. Baseball?
Nice.
Just a bit outside.
And good piece in SI this week about him, by the way.
Really?
Yeah,
Oh,
terrific.
I have a story about him, but
Well,
talk us
we'll
off the
save
air.
Save it for next week.
Save it for next time. Okay. He said, I knew my career was over. In 1965, my baseball card came out with no picture on it.
Ah.
I must be in the front row. Remember those commercials?
Mhm.
Okay. And remember the immortal words of Yogi Berra. Baseball is 90% mental, the other half is physical.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay,
That's a good
tune in next week to Sports with those words of wisdom. Tune in next week to Sports Econ 101. We're going to be discussing more sports topics from a business perspective and giving away free vacations for answering sports trivia questions. And on behalf of our team, thanks for listening. I'm Edward Brown. We're wishing you the best of Sports Econ 101. So long.
All right, that was fun.
Good, perfect.
That's almost as much fun as doing the San Rafael Pacifics.
Almost.
Almost.